This week I want to talk about the plight of Nikon and what we and they should be learning from it in terms of supportability and customer satisfaction. That's right, guys. Those of you who know me know that I'm a little bit of a photographer. If you've been to any of my presentations at any of the conferences that I've presented at, I more invariably, within the first 3 or 4 minutes, I will mention that I am a keen amateur photographer. And there are lots of reasons why I do it, but it's a bit like that joke. How do you find a pilot in a bar? You don't need to, he'll find you. You know, I will tell everyone at every opportunity that I love taking pictures. I love going out with my camera. And I realize that it's because the parallels between that creative sector and what I do in my day-to-day job, advising organizations on best practice with specifications and technology adoption and those kind of things in the technical information sector, the parallels are common. There's hundreds of them, and there's lots of things in the wider creative sector, photography, videography, graphic design, all those kind of things that eventually will find their way into what we're doing in the technical information sector and the technical data sector. But those of you who are not photographers, and those of you who couldn't care a jot about who Nikon are, just put it to one side for a minute, is that these guys are one of the biggest camera manufacturers in the world. I think they're only second to Canon. So they are a huge company. Now, what they have done recently is they have announced something called extraordinary losses. Now, there are lots of different definitions and there's lots of discussion online about this, which we're not going to talk about. The reasons why is not something we're particularly interested in this tutorial. There are other comparisons I'm going to draw when we look at the Innovation in Information series that we're currently putting together, and we're going to talk about appropriate innovation and where Nikon got it a little bit wrong, which contributed a little bit to their extraordinary losses. But so why is this important to us in supportability information? Well, actually, what this extraordinary losses thing has done is it's generated a massive amount of debate and discussion in online forums. Professional photographers are taking to forums and using it as an opportunity to rip into Nikon. There are discussions online where people are now saying they're going to drop their entire Nikon equipment and they're going to move to a competitive product, probably Canon, but there are other brands. But this has got nothing to do with the extraordinary losses. The extraordinary losses are nothing to do with the capability of these pieces of equipment that are around me. What's happened is this announcement of extraordinary losses has provided the catalyst for users to get together and say, actually, we're really pretty fed up with you guys at Nikon, and this is why we're pretty fed up. The biggest criticism of Nikon is that they have some absolutely brilliant technology. This was my first camera, which, you know, is a great camera. It's got some great technology in it. It's only 18 months, 2 years old. This one is 6 months old, and the difference in technology between the two is huge. The difference in the supportability is zero, as in the information that supports the product and how I interact with that product has not changed for over 10 years, I think somebody was saying on a platform. For example, this one has a flip screen, but it's not interactive. You can't touch it. This one does have a flip screen which you can touch, but only in certain circumstances. Now, when you want to configure the actual hardware itself to go and do what you want it to do, interacting with the information and the supportability is so hard and so cumbersome to use, it's frustrating users. You can't touch the touchscreen to navigate around quickly to find exactly what you want to set up. Now, anybody who touches or uses DSLR type cameras knows that there are a raft of different settings that you can set up on the machines to get you the best results that you need, whether you're doing landscape portraits, whether you're doing wildlife or night photography or whatever it might be. There are lots of different settings you would want to set depending on when you are using your product. So what's happened is all these professional photographers have kind of started this debate on, is Nikon actually going to provide something that we can get immersed with? And in our Innovation in Information series, we talk about immersing the user in the product via our supportability information. There's lots of ways that we can do it, and there's lots of ways that we should be doing it. But what's happened here is that Nikon have just kind of gone, well, the user's interested in taking a picture, which is true, but how they set it up doesn't really matter. And that's wrong. The user cares about how they can access information, how they can configure this in an easy and efficient way. Now, what Nikon have also done, if I move to my mobile phone here, is they did listen a few years ago, or about a year ago, to their users. The camera that I'm recording you on right now is a Panasonic. Now, this thing that we're going to talk about this again in Innovation Information has NFC technology on it, and we'll explain what that is, and we explain how to use NFC technology. NFC technology is essentially, I can walk up to it with my mobile phone, I put it next to it, and instantly it connects the two devices, and now I'm controlling the device from here. Now, Nikon tried to do that. They put together some kind of app, and it's called SnapBridge, and if you are into your photography and you're using Nikon, you probably have tried to use this. This is a sense of absolute frustration for every Nikon user. It kind of works, and when you really need it to work, it fails, it stops. People are unable to, the idea of this is that you can remote control your camera. So that's important for people like me. I like to go and do wildlife photography. So you might want to set the camera up sort of 20, 30 meters away on some kind of focal point. And then when something comes out, click, you want to take that picture. Now, what happens is that it's kind of half-baked. It really doesn't immerse the user in the same way that the camera that you're watching me on does. I can do a vast amount of things, and the camera that I'm recording you on was a fraction of the cost of this device and setup here. The user experience with this device is brilliant. The user experience with this device is not so great. And this is where people are going online and they are venting their anger at Nikon, nothing to do with the extraordinary losses, but they're using this as an opportunity to say, your supportability information and the way that you support your product and the way that I interact with your product is rubbish, and you need to address it. The key message here is that we can have the best technology that money can buy, and we can take some really great images, but if we are floundering around trying to find settings that we need to use for a certain scenario, and I'm spending more time with my face down trying to find something in a stupid way to navigate, that is going to frustrate people. Now, as with photography, is very similar, as again, I draw the parallels all the time between these two sectors. Is you've got those that are in their Nikon infrastructure, you've got those that are in the whole eco structure. They buy the lenses, they've got the docking stations, they've got, you can spend, anybody who knows this technology, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on camera equipment and the lenses are the things that are expensive, but you can spend a lot of money on this hobby. And the same is with specifications. You've got those that love a specification, you've got those that hate specifications, you've got those that love certain parts of software, you've got those that hate software. And it all boils down to the user experience. It all comes down to the user experience of the information that's being produced, and that supportability information that we are supplying with our product. Again, you can have the best platform, you can have the best product, but if your user is frustrated trying to get to information, trying to configure your product, you're going to get those fanboys that are sat within Nikon or sat within different platforms or your competitors' products, and they're going to look at moving away. Supportability information is vital to that user experience. And this mainstream industry example really illustrates that for me perfectly. If you can't satisfy your users with great supportability information, then it reflects badly on your product, regardless of how great your product might be. There's a whole raft of YouTube channels out there that show people how to use these things successfully. Why are those channels so successful? Because the supportability information of these actual platforms is so poor that people are actually creating their own tutorials and making them available online. Most of the way that I learned to use these platforms is I actually went online because the user guides and the supporting training information was so poor that I ended up going out and watching somebody who actually showed me what to do. Now, this is the point I'm trying to make, is that we all, more importantly, Nikon, need to listen and learn from their probably millions of users worldwide of their platforms. They need to listen and they need to hear what their end customer is saying. They are frustrated that the innovation and the technology that advances regularly in camera equipment, that happens all the time. It's kind of a rapid process, but that supportability of information and that supporting the way that I learn about this, that does not develop at the same rate. And the users are frustrated. The users are angry, so much so they're jumping ship. They're going over to Canon, they're going over to Fuji, they're going over to Panasonic. They're doing, they're going to the competitors. So those extraordinary losses might be extraordinary losses again in the future. But the reality is that Nikon has made some bad decisions from a technology perspective in other sectors, which has led to this extraordinary losses. And we're going to talk about that in the Innovation in Information series. But it's important that you and I, as technical data specialists, supportability specialists, emphasize within our organization the importance of what we're doing, the importance of making sure that that user experience is a great one and not a bad one. We need to make sure that our user wants to use and be immersed within our products. Nikon have learned a very, very hard and harsh lesson here. Yes, as I've said, the extraordinary losses was nothing to do with the fact that, the end user was fed up. This is to do with the fact that they invested money in different sectors. But the fact is that this was used as a catalyst for the whole community to come together and say, the way you are supporting me, your customer, is not how I expect to be engaged with, how I expect to be. I think 1 or 2 comments were about, modern access to information. We need to access information in different ways these days. The way that you access information on this thing is cumbersome, it's ugly, it's horrible. And there are ways, again, in the innovation in information, we talk about icons and how, if you go to a Samsung device, they're so pretty to use. They're really, the mind, it relaxes the mind. You want to touch things and that kind of stuff. It's not the same on this. Anyway, am I about to jump over to Canon? No, because I've invested in all these lenses and all this equipment that I have for this particular brand, and I'm in that whole eco-structure. But I wanted to draw that comparison between what's happened in mainstream consumer sector and why we need to heed these warnings from our end users. If they get so frustrated that they start venting their anger and they start venting their dissatisfaction levels with the product because of the supportability, that can cause us big problems. Anyway, subscribe to the channel, because we are, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be starting the innovation in information tutorials that we've done about 4 or 5 of them, and we're going to release them over a week or so, and we're going to start talking about the importance of innovating. Great example with Nikon right now is that you can innovate in your product, but if you don't keep pace with your supportability information, it's going to cause you trouble and it's going to reflect badly on the entire platform anyway. So I'm Michael Ingledew. I hope you found that useful. I'd be interested to hear your comments, your thoughts on that. And if you're a photographer, do get in touch, because you can let me know what you're a fanboy of or a fangirl of. I'm not necessarily a fanboy. I've found myself, Claire bought me my first Nikon D5-300 about 2 years ago, and I've bought into that eco structure, so that's why I'm there. And but subscribe to the channel, do share, show this to your managers to show that if we don't do and we don't invest in information in the right way, it can cause massive problems for us. Anyway, until next time.